So I would like to start this interview with your endings, because I know from previous interviews that the ending is very important to you to have ready before you even start shooting and thinking about the film. Why is that?
Well, I consider endings to be the most important part of cinema storytelling. It's what you're going to be leaving the audience with. It's what they'll be talking about minutes later when they're out on the sidewalk. And also, you know, I want to give something that's satisfying, a climactic, you know, catharsis. So, and hopefully I'm delivering that. So I always have to figure out my endings before even sitting down to write the screenplay. I really have to know where I'm going, you know, yeah.
And so you already know if you want to end on a light note or on a darker note?
Most definitely, yes. Because I don't know whether the story will, you know, taking on a screenplay, I'm a little bit of a slow writer, and I don't want to be writing for a year and then find out on the last day, oh, I don't know how to end this thing, you know? No, I need to at least have beginning, middle, and end in my mind before starting on that journey. And so that was basically, I knew the beginning, middle, and end when I pitched it to Mikey. When I first met Mikey Madison, I pitched her this idea, and we had all that, but I hadn't written a word yet. And I said, if you'd like this role, you can have it. And she said yes. And that's when I went away and then wrote the screenplay with her in mind. So.
And she's really great in it, and I want to come back to her acting and your process together. But firstly, several of your films are about sex workers in some way or other. You know, why do you keep returning to this topic? What is important for you to convey about this topic?
Yeah, it's a world that I explored several times, obviously. I made a film called Starlet, which was the first of the 5 films that explored that world. And I think it was me just meeting sex workers, becoming friends with sex workers, hearing their stories, understanding that sex work is really just an umbrella term. And there's so many different aspects. So therefore, there's a million stories to be told in that world. And I get endless inspiration from sex workers and hearing their stories. But at the same time, there's also, you know, I think if there's a goal behind this, it is to approach these stories in a way that I really don't see Hollywood doing that often. And meaning that I would like to approach it in a more empathetic way, and so that I'm creating these protagonists that audiences can root for and identify with and see themselves in, with the hope that by doing telling these sort of stories, I can help chip away at the stigma, the very unfair stigma that's
and
applied to that. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's applied to that occupation.
Right, and you do it very well. There are scenes that seem very chaotic when watching it, but how much improvisation are you allowing while working with your actors on set?
It really depends on the scene, because sometimes I ask for full improv. I mean, like when I'm shooting a scene in which I'm setting up the club in the very beginning of the film, you know, Mikey had done so much research in that world. She understood what the interactions and transactions would be like on any given night at this club that she works at, that I was able to ask for improv there and just follow her around and see her interact with the different clients, and it was very interesting. Other parts in the movie, I can't deviate from the script at all, because there's exposition or there's logic or there's just dialogue that I love and I want to stick to. So it really depends. But I've been blessed with not only this cast, but casts throughout my entire career where they have the gift of improvisation and comic improvisation. So I definitely take advantage of it. And if there are scenes that have a little bit of air here and there to allow for them to throw in a one-liner here or an expletive there, I will definitely encourage that.
And it's very funny sometimes, this film, Anora. Really, yeah, I really enjoyed that. About the process, I read somewhere that working with Mikey Madison actually changed how you will work with actors in the future. What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?
What I meant by that is really starting early and as I told you earlier, being able to actually write with somebody who's precast really helps, because you picture their face while you're fleshing out their character, and sometimes hearing their voice, even though I know she took on an accent and it's not her voice. But, you know, I was hearing her, I was picturing her saying these lines while I was writing. There's that, but there's also the amount of time that we actually spent just talking about her character, because this film doesn't have narration. You don't hear Annie's thoughts. You don't know the backstory here. It's a moment in time in this character's life. So, but Mikey and I wanted to understand more, you know, that she could build something, so she could have something to go on internally. So there was lots of discussion about intention and motivation, and it really did help. And I haven't had that in the past. I haven't been able to do that. So, and her level of dedication and how much she prepared for this role, oh my, it was mind-blowing to me. So to have an actor come on early enough and really be able to do all the things that it takes to get there. She did 4 months of pole dancing lessons. She worked with a dialect coach for her accent. She had to learn pages and pages of dialogue in a language she doesn't know, and then work with the sex work consultants. She did a lot of work, and I just was there all the way with her, watching her do this stuff, and being able to work with her as she was doing it was great.
Yeah, it's a great both physical and sensitive performance.
Yeah.
You know, but about doing films about sex workers, you also have sex scenes in your films. What is important being conscious of as a director making sex scenes today in this time's environment, and for keeping that trustworthy environment and reputation also?
Of course. Basically, I'm continuing doing what I've always done. I'm a producer on my film as well, and as a producer, I know the number one priority is the safety and the comfort of my actors. So, of course, we work very closely. We're very transparent exactly of what we're shooting, how we're shooting it. I don't even consider them sex scenes, to tell you the truth. They're more sex shots. They're usually just one shot that's visualized and pre-framed. We know exactly what we're shooting. The actors know. And it's very simple, 1, 2, 3. My wife, Samantha Kwan, is, of course, present on set as well. Being that she comes from an acting background, she's there with my actors. But it's on all of my sets, I would say it's a very family atmosphere. And we've been working together for months leading up to production. So everybody is quite comfortable by the time we shoot those scenes.
Just lastly here, because I'm being told to round up, you're making this fairly low budget film, independent film. How do you see in the position of independent films today in American cinema? You know, because they tend to be these big tentpole event movies that's being preferenced from the studio's side.
Yeah, well, you know, there seems to be a nice vibe right now of a lot of attention being given to these independents, and I think because audiences miss this sort of family dramas, character studies, you know, mid-budget dramedies, as we like to call them. They don't really exist anymore. Studios aren't making them. So I think they're starting to see that they can find that in the independents. And independents are also getting into multiplexes now. I mean, that was probably the only good thing that came out of COVID. But what happened with that is that during COVID, some of the multiplexes started taking independents. Meaning the chain theater started taking independence. So there's more exposure now, which is wonderful. I just think that indie filmmakers should take advantage of this moment, and because you know, audiences are starting to come back for this sort of movie.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.